Welcome back. The college admissions scandal, now known as Varsity Blues, prosecutors, well, they got their sights set on even more parents than originally named. Also, we are now seeing more and more reports of foreigners paying huge dollars here to help get their kids into the top American schools.
Hello everyone, I am 17 now. I've just graduated from high school.
This is UC Zhao, live streaming back in 2017.
And this year, mid-September, I'm going to Stanford.
Sharing news of her admission into Stanford on Chinese social media and even leaving a message of encouragement for others.
I just felt like you can always achieve the things that you want to be if you try hard.
But Stanford has since expelled this student from China, whose billionaire parents allegedly paid $6.5 million to get her into Stanford University. Allegations that UC's mother maintains are just not true, claiming that they are the victims. Releasing a statement which read in part, she was, quote, tricked into believing the seven-figure sum would go towards university salaries and programs for needy students. But that money allegedly went to this man.
Getting into the right college will set
Rick Singer, who prosecutors say is the mastermind behind the college admissions scam. So far, more than 50 people, including CEOs, doctors, lawyers, and actresses like Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman, they've been charged as clients of Singer. Some pleading guilty while others are fighting to clear their names. At this time, no one in the Zhao family has been charged with a crime. And joining me now to discuss Chief Academic Officer of CollegeWise, Arun Ponasamy. Arun, I'm curious, when you saw the Loughlin story, when you've seen now the news story coming out with the Chinese family and other seemingly burgeoning allegations against foreign money, did you have to pick your jaw off the table, or did you say to yourself, what took these guys so long to pull the lid off this thing? How surprised were you really with some of these revelations?
To be honest with you, I mean, there's been evidence of things like this piling up over the years, so I can't say that I was shocked. I was a little surprised to see everything come together in kind of this neat package, and especially to see, kind of this organized legal maneuvering to kind of, bring folks to justice.
How about the numbers? 500,000, 6.5 million as it relates to the Chinese. Did you ever know that we were getting into 6 and 7 figures? In that kind of scope, and then, my God, photoshopping, pictures of kids who never even, I don't even know if the kids can swim, let alone they ever rode crude before. Did you know it ever went to that degree?
I did to the extent, in fact, I was in Beijing and Hong Kong just a week ago, and the running joke amongst many of those families was somewhat mocking these families for, paying $50,000 or $500,000. They're like, this wouldn't have happened if they had spent more money, right? And now you see there were families, out of Beijing and whatnot, who were willing to pay these kinds of vast sums. We know that that's been kind of lurking in the background. Probably what makes this difference is it didn't go directly through the development department of a university. It went through, this third party, Rick Singer and all his cronies.
I want to get to the consequences of this beyond the courtroom. You deal with college admissions offices all over the place. Are you seeing material changes for the class? Kids are getting, as they say, the thin or thick envelopes. I know it's online nowadays, but are they already changing who they accept and who they don't as a consequence of this scandal? Or will this be a ripple here in a few years, we'll be back to normal?
I'll be honest with you. I think it's still to be determined. I think there is currently a lot of conversation taking place within admissions offices and broadly within universities. I mean, interestingly enough, I think admissions officers might be the least to blame in this process. I think by and large, most of them are doing the right thing. These were folks who found some weak spots, some loopholes, and were able to exploit them, to their advantage. But I do think that, mechanically speaking, you have colleges who are going to work much more closely with their athletic departments. But I do think there's also increasing conversations about the role that, money and privilege play in the whole world of college admissions.
To me, there's a story that no one's talking about, which is the next phase of this. And you'd have a better perspective than I would. But for me, I can imagine there are admissions offices where every single year in the top tier and even second tier universities, somebody from the development office or whatever else is going to walk down and say, you know, not walk this kid in, but let's put this application at the top. It's either a kid of a legacy, of a donor, whatever the case may be, pay special attention. To this point, they be quiet, they go through the due diligence, and they go from there. I have a feeling that this story will now liberalize, if you will, some of those officers to say, no, I'm not going to bite my tongue anymore. If I think anything is going on or anyone's getting in preferential treatment, I'm going to say something. And to me, I get it, but I also understand we've had a lot of colleges, private colleges, shuttering their doors because they can't make the numbers work. And we know about the oppressive student debt that so many kids are facing. You need, it's a dirty secret, but it's true, private donations here so that they can help alleviate some of the tuition sticker shock for the kids and also be able to make some scholarships available. I think people ought to be careful where they go. Nobody wants what we've seen here, but on the same end, do you think, Aaron, we may go so far that some of the people most adversely affected are those kids who do need help with paying for the oppressive numbers that is college tuition?
Right. You know, to me, this feels like we're far too down the road in the way that colleges, universities are financed. I mean, these are businesses, and as there have been cuts at the federal and state level that can't sustain the research. I mean, research universities are expensive places to run, and they need lots and lots of money to do this. And then also, a lot of the data shows that, yes, you know, the subsidizing of students can take place through higher tuition from students who can pay more. So, you know, if you talk about paying more, in some ways, these, you know, development cases are folks where, you know, the right amount of money can take care of dozens of students who couldn't have otherwise afforded that, afforded that education. So I think there's going to be some work to be done to make it a fair balance. I don't see a world in which we get rid of development entirely. But, you know, for the most part, these kids, even when they're admitted as development cases, they have to be able to do the work, you know, in order to graduate and, you know, make the school proud and, you know, improve all those stats that the colleges care about. So by and large, I don't think you're going to see radical changes. I think there'll be a little bit more mindfulness. And yeah, I think in the margins, admissions officers are going to be more comfortable kind of standing up and saying, hey, listen, this is not going to fly.
So I think everybody would agree to the egregious criminal stuff that went on that can't. But the legal part of it, and I think especially for families that live in certain zip codes in this country where, I mean, I've seen it, kids that have no learning disabilities will get the special exemption for ADHD. They'll spend ridiculous amounts of money to, you know, have shrinks basically sign off on it so the kids can have unlimited timing. You have counselors that basically set the kids' curriculums up from before they walk in as a freshman until they graduate so that every course is chosen, every timing for the test prep, which also costs a small fortune, the one-on-one tutoring, the right sports to take, the right summer activities that some kid in the wrong zip code has no clue about when they're doing. That's all legal. But the consequence of the pressure cooker on these kids and these families, it's gotten out of hand, and you have seen this, I'm sure, more times than you can count. Do you see any reason why that's going to change in the near future, especially with all the international applicants coming on top of the domestic ones, making that pool smaller and smaller to get into these great schools?
Right. Well, I will say, you know, we have seen the numbers from China are actually dropping by small percentage points, but we are starting to see a little bit of shrinking on the international front, but I do think I'm hopeful that we're moving to a place in kind of our culture where we aren't putting these kinds of pressures on students, you know, where they feel that they have to be perfect. I mean, we hear about the skyrocketing depression rates, the skyrocketing suicide rates, and I think there are a lot of people who are starting to be mindful of that. I think universities are starting to, I think they could do more, but I think both universities and admissions offices within them are starting to kind of say, hey, we're not obsessed with you getting 12, 15 AP courses. We feel pretty good. You take 6, you know, you could find your way into our elite university. I think you have groups like Challenge Success, Denise Pope's group out of Stanford, We're doing really thoughtful work with a number of these, some of these affluent suburban high schools where a lot of these pressures, these kids feel such a pressure to succeed. They're kind of talking them down, not letting them equate selectivity of the university with the quality of the education or the experience that they're going to have. The transformative nature that education should be, and removing it from just like, hey, that'd be a cool sweatshirt to wear, or hey, that's a famous place. And I think we're starting to have more of those conversations, and I'm hoping more and more people, in particular the universities and the admissions offices themselves, will join into the work that a lot of counselors and folks at the high school level are already deeply engaged with.
Finally, Arun, and I'm going to ask you to name any names here. If there was a camera on conversations some of the parents have with you about their kids when they start this process, that's a reality TV show, I think, in the making.
Yeah, that's almost happened before, a reality show.
Arun, thank you so much for a few. I really appreciate it, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the next 6-12 months with this develops. Thank you again.
Yeah, take care.
All right, everybody, when we come back, a lot of new poll numbers, they're out. What we're going to do is we'll break them down and also talk about the picture they paint about where we stand more than a year here from the general election.